Hello and welcome to Aero Innovations. I'm Aero and I'll be your host this evening. If you're new to the channel, I'm a longtime pro who specializes in the lowest stakes. So if you're looking to crush low stakes, no limit hold'em, then you've come to the right place. Tonight I have a fun little collab I just wrapped up with Jesse from Minivan Poker. If you're unfamiliar with who he is, you should totally check out his channel. He's a middle-aged guy with 3 kids who's just trying to get back into the glory days of poker before his wife and family happened. He does an awesome job of storytelling with some pretty insane production quality. So make sure to check out his channel if you want to see his perspective of some of our recent challenges. Tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to play a couple hours of 1-3 before hopping over to the 2-5 and playing for a couple of hours there. On the 1-3 we'll be buying in for 500, which is the max. But when we get to the 2-5, we'll be buying in for 1500, which is 300 big blinds. It's Wednesday, January the 14th. We start the session at 5:43 in the evening. 20 minutes into the session, the hijack, a fellow fan of the vlog, opens to 8. I decide to call in the small blind with Queen 9 of hearts. The big blind suddenly 3-bets to 30. The hijack calls. I don't have a very good hand, and I wasn't expecting to call a $30 bet when I originally decided to play with this hand, but I'm kind of priced in at this point. If the big blind really had a good hand here, he should have used the larger sizing, closer to like 40 or so. I most likely would have folded for 40. But since I've already partially committed my $8, I decide to make a tentative call for 22 more. The flop comes 4, deuce, queen, rainbow. We flop top pair, but our kicker is nothing to write home about, and we also don't have any backdoor draws of any kind. Obviously, I start with a check. The big blind fires a pretty strong c-bet for 56 into the pot of 90. The hijack folds. If our opponent has an overpair here, we're just kind of screwed, but we can reevaluate after the turn. We're beating hands like pocket jacks and ace king, but we're losing to pocket kings, pocket aces, and ace queen. I mean, I didn't call with this hand pre-flop, only to flop top pair and then fold to a single bet, so I kinda have to make the call here. The turn brings in a 3 of hearts, not helping us whatsoever. Thankfully, after I check, my opponent just checks the action back. Oh, phew! There's a really good chance we're good right now. The river completes with a 7 of clubs. I could target ace king or pocket jacks with a super tiny bet here for like 10%, but there's always the possibility our opponent may have just been pot controlling with a hand that actually beats ours. 1-3 players aren't quite as predictable as 2-5 players for me, since they don't always make rational plays. So I decide to just check again. Our opponent checks the action back once more. We table our hand, and it's good. 20 minutes later, I open to 15 in the +1 with ace-king of diamonds, using a standard 5x raise for a typical premium starting hand. It folds around to the big blind, who 3-bets me, but only with a tiny min click to 30, with a stack of about 215. This is either an extremely silly raise or a super nutted hand. My opponent doesn't even have a full 100 big blinds though, and I'm holding a top 4 starting hand. His stack doesn't leave me a whole lot of options to do anything fancy, so I just shrug and go all in with the 4-bet. My opponent puts in the call, letting me know that he has pocket kings. Mother father, we're gonna need some help. The flop comes king, ace, 8, rainbow with 1 diamond. Even though we just flopped top 2 pairs, our opponent just flopped a set with the last remaining king. Only another ace or some backdoor diamonds will save us now. Even if I had only just flatted our opponent's 3-bet pre-flop, there's no way we could have escaped after a flop like this. So anyways, the turn brings in a 9 of spades, and the river completes with a 7 of diamonds. We do not in fact improve. Our opponent tables his hand and scoops this pot. I'm gonna skip you guys a bunch of drama and move on to this next hand, which happens almost a full hour later. In that time, I get completely annihilated, little by little, unable to win anything meaningful besides for that first pot with the Queen 9 of hearts. That was literally the biggest pot I'd won all night so far. That is, until I looked down at my least favorite premium starting hand in the big blind. Oh yes, we're talking about the accursed pocket kings. Hey, they worked out for my opponent earlier. Maybe I can finally recover some losses with them as well. Here, the middle position limps. The cutoff raises to 15 with a large stack of about 650. It folds around to me. My position is terrible, so I need to decide on a 3-bet sizing that will charge accordingly for that inconvenience. I decide to pop things up to 55. The middle position folds, but the cutoff makes the call. The flop comes queen, 8, 4 with 2 diamonds and a heart. We maintain an overpair, but the board does admittedly have 2 diamonds. I start with a slight down bet to 50 to see if our opponent has anything worth calling. Surely enough, he puts in the call. I'm hoping he has a hand like ace queen, or if we're super lucky, a completely dominated hand like pocket jacks, because we're pretty screwed if he actually has pocket queens. The turn brings in a 5 of hearts, putting 2 hearts on board to go along with the 2 diamonds. Now that we know our opponent has a hand that he deems worth battling, I up the aggression with a bet of 160 into the pot of 214. Again, our opponent makes a pretty quick call. He doesn't even take a moment to decide if he should raise or not. So at this point, I'm almost convinced we have the best hand right now. The river brings in an unsightly ace of spades. Ace queen has just caught up, and there's no way to get any value out of a hand like pocket jacks with this sort of runout. So I have no choice here but to check. Oddly enough, our opponent checks as well. I announce pocket kings, but then our opponent tables ace king of diamonds for the missed flush draw that rivered that freaking ace. How ironic that when I was the one holding ace king of diamonds and I went up against pocket kings, I lost over $200. But now that I'm the one with pocket kings and I'm up against ace king of diamonds, I still end up losing over $200. Jesse and I end up playing about another 45 minutes over at the 1-3 before getting tired of all the tight competition and deciding to take our patronage over to the 2-5. As you can see from my graph here, I lose $700 in just over 2.5 hours with a downtrending graph that just kept getting worse and worse. I even rebought on 5 separate occasions, but could never catch a break. Let's hope the 2-5 will treat us better. Hey guys, let me give you a quick explanation and some perspective. This is actually the 3rd iteration of a collab between Minivan Poker and I. The other 2 are in my Every Hand Showcase 100 plus hand style of videos, so they take quite a bit longer to edit and I'll release them as soon as I can. In this challenge here, we just have a friendly $50 on the line. Whoever does better after 4 hours wins $50 from the other person, and currently I am freaking buried. We played about 2.5 hours in the 1-3 and I'm down $700. We only have another hour and a half for our challenge and I'm feeling the pressure building. Thankfully, we've moved to 2-5, which is my home field, my arena, so to speak. So hopefully I have some time to catch up. In other news, it's 2026. So unless you want to wait until the absolute last minute, I suggest you get started on your taxes. I'm not being paid or anything. This is not a sponsored video. Last year, I found this great tax guy named Tino of Tino's Taxes. My wife will put his information up on the screen somewhere. And not only was he able to accommodate my last minute reservations, he was able to get me things that I had no idea I qualified for. Normally, I file myself as a professional gambler, but Tino actually suggested that I file as a business instead, and I was able to get money back that I wasn't expecting. So if you need to get your taxes done, he can handle business anywhere in the US. I totally suggest you guys give Tino a call. Don't forget to tell him that Aero with the Poker channel sent you. And lastly, if you're looking to play online poker in America, if you want to qualify for my monthly $500 cash drawings that I do over on Instagram, you can get the details in the description below. The first playable hand I pick up over at the 2-5, I look down at pocket nines and open to 25 in the low jack. I will open raise with this same exact hand anywhere between 3 to 5x, so my opponents will have a much harder time trying to pinpoint my hand strength. For this stronger than normal raise, only the small blind makes the call. The flop comes 7, deuce 6 with 2 spades and a heart. We flop an overpair on a pretty connected board with 2 to a suit. It doesn't get too much better than this. Our opponent checks. Since the board is so wet and dynamic, meaning there are multiple straight and flush draws on board, and even any random high card coming out can dramatically change who has the lead, I throw out a nearly full pot-sized c-bet for 45. Undaunted, our opponent makes the call. We don't know if he has a straight draw, a flush draw, or maybe just top pair. The turn brings in an ace of diamonds. Yes, I realize it's an overcard, but it's highly unlikely to be in our opponent's range considering the pot-sized bet he called on the flop, unless he were very specifically holding the ace-high flush draw or a hand like a7 suited. So when he puts in another check, I proceed with continued strength, charging for the various draws I targeted on the flop, firing a second bullet for 100 into the pot of 140. Don't be afraid to try to extract maximum value for the various draws when a scared card peels out that doesn't make sense to be in your opponent's range. This time, our bet does the trick, as our opponent simply just folds. Oh goody, we finally win a hand for a change. Hopefully this won't be a repeat of how our 1-3 session just went, where we won a hand early on, only to get punished repeatedly hand after hand after that. Not like this is foreshadowing or anything.
Ooh.
A few minutes later, I opened to 15 in the low jack with ace-10 offsuit. The hijack, cutoff, and big blind all call, so we go 4 ways to flop of queen, 4, king, with 2 hearts and a club. We flop a gut shot straight draw with an overcard. Big blind leads with a bet of 35 into the pot of 60. It's barely over a half pot size bet. Our ace might be good if it hits. And of course, we still have our gut shot draw as well. So we have between 3 to 7 outs in this spot, depending upon if an ace will be good, or if we need to rely on a gut shot that isn't a heart. But since our opponent is using such a small bet sizing, I decide on a tentative call. Jesse from Minivan Poker calls as well in the cutoff. The turn brings in a questionable card. It's a jack, but unfortunately, it's a freaking jack of hearts, completing the front door flush draw. We hit our gut shot straight, but there is a possibility of a flush on board. Big blind leads again with a bet of 45, betting considerably smaller with proportion to the pot, only for about 25% this time. His bet sizing leads me to believe he has a strong hand, but he's being timid due to the third heart. I have Jesse behind me yet to act, so I decide to only just flat call to see what he does. Interestingly enough, he also just calls. I have a feeling I have the best hand right now, and plan to pounce as long as the river isn't unfavorable. But speaking of unfavorable rivers, the river brings in a freaking 9 of hearts, putting 4 hearts on board. This run out just got really undesirable. So when the big blind fires a third bullet, but for 200 this time, using a 2/3 pot size bet, I suspect he's either holding the ace or the king of hearts. So obviously I can only just fold, and Jesse does as well. The big blind voluntarily tables his hand to show ace king with the ace of hearts. So unless Jesse slow played a flush, which I highly doubt, we could have most likely squeezed some value out of both players if the river hadn't brought out a fourth heart. If I had to guess, I think Jesse probably had 2 pairs here. About 15 minutes later, there's a live 10. I open to 40 in the middle position with ace-king offsuit. The low jack calls with a stack of about 1,000, and everyone simply just folds. The flop comes 6, ace-king with 2 clubs and a heart. We flop top 2 pairs on a board with a possible flush draw. Holding the ace of clubs, we have pretty strong coverage of this board. So I start with a slightly less than half pot size bet of another stale 40 into the pot of 95. Surprisingly, our opponent puts in a min raise to 80, which is still less than a full pot size bet. Geez, man, is my luck really that bad today? Did I really just run into another set while holding top 2 pairs? Okay, let's evaluate what sorts of hands our opponent could be holding. He might be holding a combo draw with a hand like 10 jack of clubs or something similar. If that's the case, we're probably close to a 60-40 favorite. Most preferably, he could be holding 2 pairs with a 6 suited. That's the dream scenario anyways. His min click on this wet board is pretty peculiar. Is he trying to get a cheap flush draw by making me hesitant to bet on the turn? I've seen many people on flush draws play their hand this exact same way. Does he have a hand that's completely crushed, like ace-queen or ace-jack? If he's holding anything other than pocket sixes, we have a pretty commanding lead here. And even if he is holding pocket sixes, we still have about a 16% chance to improve by the river. I don't think our opponent is deep enough for me to consider playing this hand defensively, so I decided on just going the aggressive route by 3-betting the action up to 280. If our opponent really does have bottom set here, we're just going to have to pay him off. After about 20 seconds, our opponent shoves all in, which is not the response we were hoping for. But since I don't have any read whatsoever on what kind of player type he is, I just go ahead and make the call. He fast rolls pocket sixes. Pocket freaking sixes for bottom set. And just like that, we get absolutely annihilated by a set for the second time tonight after flopping top two pairs with ace-king. The runout does not help whatsoever, so we give our opponent a full double up. Okay, so at this point, I am absolutely buried. I didn't mention it at the beginning of the video, but Minivan Poker and I currently have a friendly bet going. Whoever wins more after 4 hours gets $50 from the other player. He's currently only up about $100 or so, but that doesn't really matter when I'm currently stuck close to $1,900 between the two different games. We only have about an hour to go until the end of the challenge, so I need a freaking miracle at this point to turn things around. 10 minutes later, the live 10 is still on when the middle position opens to 35. The low jack and hijack both call. I call on the button with ace-10 offsuit. The big blind calls as well, and so does the straddle, so we go 6 ways in position to a flop of queen, 7, 6, rainbow. We do not actually flop anything whatsoever. The action checks around to me. I consider trying to steal this pot right here and now, but on this mostly dry board, there's no reason why someone can't be slow playing an absolute monster here like a set. So I decide to simply check the action back. The turn brings in a 3 of diamonds, keeping the board rainbow. 4-5 makes us straight. This time, after the big blind checks, the straddle starts playing with his chips. He pauses and delays noticeably. He points around the table and asks how many people are in the hand. Then, eventually, after a full 45 seconds, he decides to finally check. Everyone else quickly checks behind. Alright, I have all the information I need. After all that Hollywooding, the straddle probably lost his nerve trying to steal the pot against so many other opponents. No one else seems to be very interested in this hand, so I want to go for a one and done type of play. I shoot out a full pot size bet of 200. Meanwhile, I verbally taunt the straddle, asking why he checked after tanking for that long. Thankfully, our ploy works, and everyone just quickly folds. This is the power of position, and this is why I am so very inclined to play much weaker hands on the button. If I can't win with any real hands tonight, then I'm going to need to switch gears up and try to steal a few pots. A few minutes later, I'm on the straddle with ace-9 of clubs. Here, Jesse opens to 30 in the low jack. The hijack and button both call. I could just call here, but I don't think Jesse has a very GTO style of play. There's already nearly $100 trapped in the middle, so I decide to take the aggressive route and 3-bet the action up to 150. Everyone quickly folds, and I continue my tirade of aggressive bluffing. But I'm not done yet. Oh no, no, no. Not by a long shot. For this hand, and from now on, the table is no longer straddling. Here I open to 15 in the middle position with king-jack offsuit. The button and small blind both call, so we go 3 ways to flop a 5, queen, 10 with 2 diamonds and a club. We flop an open-ended straight draw with an overcard, which is better than average. When the small blind checks, I want to start potentially utilizing fold equity right here and now, so I shoot out a nearly half pot size bet of 20 into the pot of 45. The button calls, but the small blind folds. The turn brings in a 5 of clubs, pairing the bottom pair. We do not in fact improve. Rather than just continuing to fire without any information as to what sorts of hand our opponent could be holding, I decide on a check. Our opponent fires out a strong 70% pot size bet of 60 into the pot of 85. Sure, our opponent could have a 5 here for trips, but this is the 2-5, not the 1-3. I highly doubt our opponent caught with bottom pair in a multi-way pot with 2 diamonds on board. I think this bet sizing is mostly just indicative of a queen. Since I'm out of position, I don't want to just call and then lead if we hit and then fold if we miss. That would be incredibly face up and not very profitable in the long term. So instead, I elect on a much more aggressive route. I put in a check raise to 200, fully trying to utilize my fold equity. I mean, even if our opponent calls, we still have 11 outs to improve. But assuming we miss, this stance will look so utterly strong that we can most likely bluff the vast majority of river cards. We're representing hands here like ace queen, pocket tens, an overpair, and very occasionally even that 5. After about 15 seconds, our opponent does end up making the call. The river brings in a 6 of spades. We do not in fact improve. However, this card is definitely one that I'm okay with blasting off on. The pot is currently 485, and our opponent has about 900 left in his stack. I don't know about you, but I don't know of very many opponents who are brave enough to call off for their entire stack with only just top pair. So I shove all in for a nearly double pot sized bet. Will I ever do this with a real hand? Only if I think my opponent is absolutely holding a 5 and I have a hand like pocket tens or something similar. But that aside, absolutely not. The beautiful thing about exploitative poker, though, is that you don't need to be balanced. All of that hogwash you might have heard about playing a balanced playstyle only applies to GTO, and I am definitely not a GTO player or advocate. After nearly a full minute in the tank, our opponent does eventually let his hand go, so we continue to terrorize the countryside with our aggressive bluffs, since we can't seem to make a real actual hand. Here the hijack limps. The cutoff and OMC type of player raises to 20, which I recognize is a weak raise sizing from the late position, especially after one limper. The button calls. I'm sitting here with King Jack offsuit in the small blind. This is not a very good hand, and my position is also terrible. So rather than just call here, I elect to continue my aggressive playstyle by taking advantage of my opponent's bet sizing, and 3-bet the action up to a considerable $100. Everyone quickly folds, and once again, I bully the table with a very mediocre hand. Sometimes this is just what you need to do when you can't make anything. I've been careful not to show a single bluff, however, so as to not sully my table image. If this is the only way I can currently win, I want to be able to keep doing it. My table is definitely more on the tight side, so if your opponents keep playing rock, then you need to utilize paper-thin bluffs. Here the hijack and cutoff both limp. I raise to 20 on the button with ace-10 offsuit, just putting in a little pot sweetener while in position with a mediocre hand. The blinds both fold, but both of the limpers make the call. We go 3 ways, in position, to flop a 4-7 queen with 2 spades and a diamond. As usual, we do not in fact flop anything whatsoever. However, after both of our opponents check, we do have position, and a queen high board is definitely one that is good for our range. So I proceed with a half pot size c-bet of 35 into the pot of 65. The hijack folds, but the cutoff makes the call. He's the opponent we recently pulled that huge bluff on. For this hand, he's changed seats and is currently immediately on our right. The turn brings in a king of spades, completing the front door flush draw. Our opponent checks. We improve to include a gut shot straight draw, but it's less important to concern ourselves with what we're holding, and it's more important to think about what our opponent might possibly be holding. Unless he just hit that flush, he's going to really hate this king. It's an overcard to the queen, and in the event he doesn't have any spades, he'll be drawing completely dead against a flush. There's no need to do anything silly when the turn is this favorable of a bluff card. I fire out another bet of 55 into the pot of 135, and surely enough, this does the trick, as our opponent just folds. It may take you a while to fully master, but when you're trying to bluff successfully, you need to learn what cards are good for your range, as well as which cards are great to use as scare cards. So far, we have a 100% bluffing success on this table, and that's not even bothering to include some of the smaller bluffs I've made as well. But I still can't make a single real hand for the life of me. Okay, so at this point, a seat finally opens up on the other side of the table by Jesse, so I quickly hop over to change things up. You know how the casino is constantly rotating dealers to remove any possibility of dealer habits possibly affecting the results of a game? They do this for the table games as well as the poker tables. Well, I find that when you're sometimes completely card dead or running bad, a seat or table change could sometimes make all the difference. Here, Jesse opens to 15 in the cutoff. I'm sitting with pocket sevens in the small blind. There's not enough trapped money for me to bother squeezing, so I just make the flat call. But the big blind folds. We go heads up, out of position, to our first favorable flop since the dinosaurs still roamed the land. It's 6-7 ace with 2 spades and a club. We finally flop a freaking set on an ace high board with 2 spades. This board should be great for Jesse's range, whether he actually flopped anything or not. So I start with a deceptive check. I'm delighted when Jesse throws out a continuation bet for 20 into the pot of 35. Using a slightly over half pot size bet, that indicates he should have something here most of the time. Without bothering to waste any time, I immediately put in a check raise to 60. As you guys already know, I think slow playing is for chumps. Things get even better when Jesse suddenly 3-bets me to 210. Oh my goodness. How strong could his hand possibly be here to 3-bet? I mean, versus a check raise, I'm repping at least 2 pairs at bare minimum, or a massive combo draw with a hand like 8-9 of spades. Does Jesse really have aces up? Does he have a set of sixes? He's sitting here with a full stack pretty close to 1400. Against this sort of action, there's no need to fire back and forth. I'm just gonna drop the bomb and target hands like aces up and pocket sixes very specifically. I would hate to only just flat call here, only to have an action-killing card roll out on the turn. Like for instance, let's say our opponent has 6-7 here. Any ace or spade on the turn would absolutely kill all the action, and we do not want that to happen. So I just overshove all in for the remainder of Jesse's stack, which is close to about 1200 or so. At this point, he starts to tank, which I am not very excited about. I was really hoping for a snap call. Jesse tanks for a full minute and a half, in fact. I ask him to show us what he's thinking about, and he tables King 8 of spades for the flopped nut flush draw. Mathematically, there's not much to think about. There's barely 450 bucks in the middle, and he's facing an overshove for an additional 1200 bucks to call. Mathematically, he can only call a shove here for an additional 500 at the absolute maximum, and that's only if he assumes all 9 of his cards will be live, which they are not. In all honesty, this should be a pretty easy fold. Regardless, Minivan poker isn't a professional like I am, so I can't expect other people to be able to calculate the odds as fast as I can. With a normal flush draw against a one-pair type of holding, you have about a 37% chance to win the pot, assuming your opponent isn't holding any of your outs. That's when you can call up to a $500 shove here. Here, in this spot with my particular hand, you can see Jesse only has about a 27% chance to win, which, from the way I played the hand, you can assume I will have a set here a very large proportion of the time. So when the pot is only 450, and you're looking at a call of nearly 1200 bucks while on a draw, this should be a very clear and instantaneous fold. Eventually, after an additional 30 seconds, Jesse does indeed come to the right conclusion and just lets his hand go. Okay, so Aero coaching time. Once Jesse led on the flop and faced a check raise, his only option is to just flat call. His hand will be pretty disguised. I am way more likely to put him on that ace as opposed to a random flush draw. He can profit quite considerably with the nut flush draw in position. Once he faced a check raise, he can never go for a 3-bet in that spot. Check raises are very often weighted heavily towards incredible strength, and when up against an unstoppable force, you really don't want to try to be an immovable object. Only a scant few minutes later, I open to 25 under the gun with pocket queens, my favorite pair of interracial thespians. It folds around to Minivan poker in the small blind, who 3-bets me to 75. The big blind folds. Oh man, are we about to go in for round 2 so quickly? I mean, I suppose I'm losing to kings and aces, but I'm not the sort of timid player who plays with fear. I beat the entire rest of his 3-betting range, which can include a lot of smaller pocket pairs like jacks and tens, as well as ace-king and ace-queen, whether suited or not. So I simply just 4-bet the action immediately up to 275. Undaunted, Jesse makes the call. I'm almost certain we have the best hand right now because I don't think Jesse is the sort of player to slow play pre-flop. He will more than likely just 5-bet rip it if he had kings or aces. So the flop comes, and right in the freaking window, I see an immediate queen, followed by a 4 and a deuce. Rainbow. We flop top freaking set on a completely uncoordinated rainbow flop. This is about as good as it possibly gets. So when Jesse starts with a check, I throw out an outrageous 9% pot-sized bet of 50 into the pot of 555. 99.9% of the low-stakes poker community will be completely confused with this bet sizing. It's used to entice opponents into continuing with their dead draws, or draws that are pretty darn close to dead. Surely enough, our opponent makes the call. The turn brings in an 8 of spades, putting 2 spades on board. Jesse checks again. Okay, at this point, I don't think ace-king is calling much of anything. So let's see if he's actually holding pocket jacks or ace-king of spades. I shoot out a much more considerable bet of 225 into the pot of 655. Pretty quickly, Jesse makes the call, leaving himself only about 520 left in his stack. The river breaks out completely with the 6 of diamonds. Jesse checks for a third time. If our opponent had ace-king of spades, he's not calling $1 on this river. So instead, let's hope he has pocket jacks. I shove all in for his last remaining 520 or so. He's already pretty pot committed, so he makes the call. We table our hand, and he lets me know that he did in fact have pocket jacks. We win this massive pot of over $2,000 and not only climb out of the red for the session, but we're currently actually up about $300 on the day. I play for about another 45 minutes or so after this hand without a whole lot happening before deciding to rack up and end our challenge.
Hey, what's up guys? It's Aero here. I'm here with Minivan Poker again. He's here to visit. And yesterday we hung out together. We tried round 2, but we didn't get any footage and it wasn't fair. So
You won a lot yesterday.
In the 2.5 hours or so it took me to get 100 hands to make a video, I was up 600, and you?
I was down almost 1,000, but after he left,
Yes.
I came up about 2 racks. So I'm okay with the night. The
More
challenge.
than 2 racks. You're up like, I mean, you recovered your losses and then some, because 2 racks is only 1,000.
No, I was up 2 racks.
Oh, okay.
I was up 2 racks. So I cashed out like over 3,000.
Amazing. So today we went in officially for round 3, and this one we actually put $50 on it. See who did better in the first 4 hours.
And guess who won?
Wasn't me. I lost $50, guys. I lost $50. I got completely buried playing the 1-3. I got top 2 pair ace king versus a set, and then I lost pocket kings, of course. What the heck? What else do I do with that hand? Went to the 2-5, got top 2 pair ace king versus guess what? A freaking set again. So I'm buried for like $1,800.
But guess who got him back?
Meanwhile, though, Jesse wins the challenge because he's up like $100 in the 4 hours. He was up freaking $100 and he wins because I'm just buried. However, shortly after our challenge, I completely annihilate Jesse here. 2 hands, almost back to back within about 5 minutes. I get a set both times. You save yourself by trying to make a move but folding properly with a king high flush draw the first time.
And then this one hurt more.
The second one, he completely punted, drawing dead. 0
Rampage
outs.
style, baby.
0 outs. I have top
0
set of
outs.
queens.
Drawing dead on the flop.
And I put him exactly on jacks, and I got max value with my betting. So,
This guy's a beast.
but I did lose the $50. You got $50, Aero
I
dollars.
got a little back. I got a little back.
All right, guys. So Aero and Minivan Poker here with you guys, doing a collab, and hope you guys had fun. And we'll catch you guys later.
In for 2,600 after being forced to top off for an additional 1,100 and out for 3612 for an absolutely killer comeback to be up just over $1,000 in the 2-5 and $312 on the day since I lost $700 over in the 1-3. If you liked what you saw today, please don't forget to smash that like button. Hype this video if you can. Subscribe to the channel for more tips and tricks on how to crush low stakes, no limit hold'em. Follow me on Instagram to get details on my monthly $500 cash drawings. Check out my Patreon to see more of the coaching series and to get early access to my vlogs. And as always, I hope to see you in the next video.